supposed to give an introduction. Yes.
You don't have to if you don't want to.
All right, go ahead then.
Okay.
We've already taken enough time from you.
Here we are. Hopefully you can see that. So my name's Katie. I am with Mad Security, and I'm going to talk about diamonds, fitness, and quotes, manipulation for fun and profit. I was making a talk. Okay, come on. Of course this isn't going to work. Whatever, I'll just click it on here. So I was making my talk and I was trying to figure out, I can't touch that. Okay, so I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I went through several renditions. At first, my original concept was, we're going to talk about the history of human manipulation. Let's learn from our mistakes. Because there's a lot of mistakes that happen. And it's always good to know what they are. Because, I mean, just like any other situation, if you know the history, then you're going to know how to use it to your advantage. But I started writing it, and it sounded way too much like when I taught undergrads. It's a big old history lesson, and I didn't think it was appropriate, so I moved on. And I went through how to get your dog to fetch a beer, lessons in training anything or anyone. And it was good, and it was fine, and I, again, started to make it, but then I started thinking about what I wanted you guys to walk away with, and I realized what you were going to walk away with was some scary information, in which case everyone's going to run around trying to train everyone to do every little thing. You're going to try to train your friend to do the Macarena before touching the TV. Your dogs are going to be doing weird stuff, so I was like, I don't want to be responsible for that at something like B-Sides. And the whole Black Hat, DEF CON amalgamation of everything. So I moved on and finally came to, fuck it, let's just drink and make some bad decisions. So that's what we're going to do. That was a joke, guys. Good. Good job. I'm going to cue those jokes. I'm going to drink, mainly because I drank a lot last night. And I have to be alert. So there we go. So this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about a variety of things. And the first thing is going to be, how do you scare someone into a date? Believe it or not, everything I'm going to talk about is small, subtle things that are based in psychology and manipulation. Small things you can do to get anything you want. So one of the things that happened a long time ago is there was does anyone know what bridge this is? Anyone know? It's a very tall suspension bridge.
New Zealand, isn't it?
I feel like it's not. It's close. It's not close, but I want to give you some credit for trying. It's outside of Vancouver, right? It's outside of Vancouver. It's a suspension bridge, really high, right? You can look down. I tried to show really good perspective. And what ends up happening is people cross it. It's a big tourist attraction. And when you get to the other side, you have this heightened sense of arousal. We're not talking sex here. We're just talking about you're excited. Well, researchers wanted to look into this idea of how do you get someone to like you? Like, what is going on here chemistry-wise? And what they did is they decided to put some hot girl at the end of the bridge, or at the beginning of the bridge. So let's say it was Megan Fox. She had a lab coat on since this was science. So Megan Fox, so people, they go across the bridge, and at the end, we have Megan Fox, or somebody of similar hotness. And she simply asks them, hey, how did you like your experience? This is exciting. If you have any other questions for me, here's my number. Feel free to contact me. And the actual study was, who contacts her? How many people are going to contact her? And what they ended up finding out was that all these people were contacting her, not only for questions, but to ask her on a date. So, but that wasn't the only thing too. They actually put her for some people at the beginning of the bridge, before they had this heightened sense of arousal, to see like, oh, it's going to happen. Nobody called her on that one. They were like, yeah, whatever. I don't care. So what they ended up finding out is that people get this heightened sense of arousal when they cross the bridge. They saw a hot girl. She was nice. So they attributed that arousal to her. She misplaced the experience onto herself. So essentially, getting somebody to trick you into a date. So that's where you get, like, you know, anyone that I talk to about, what do you do on a first date? And people are like, oh, sit at dinner. I'm like, yes, that's great. Put her to a food coma. That's really going to get your chances real high. But no, people, they're like, we went on a roller coaster. Usually those dates end well. You understand what I'm saying? Because, yeah, you get your date into a heightened sense of arousal. You smile at them, and then they're like, I must like you. This is great. And this is why this guy gets dates. So, and so this is this concept of how to trick someone into a date. It's this idea, you're essentially hijacking their subjective experience. You know exactly what's going to happen. You put them in a situation that you know what's going to happen. I mean, it could be in the negative manner as well. Let's say that you want somebody to leave you alone. You put them in a heightened sense of arousal. You piss them off. They're a lot more likely to, one, hate you, and two, want to fight with you. So it's another way to kind of egg people on. So this is this idea of trick someone into a date. This is what we've done, this is exciting, now we know, but let's just say that we're talking about these two. Love prevails. And now it's time to buy some diamonds. Everyone knows what diamonds are, right? How many of you guys are married? Some of you, right? How many of you had to buy a wedding ring or received a diamond ring? Okay. Guys, how many of you really understood that and why? A couple of you. Chris, just because she's in the room?
No, she's
Okay.
in her speaker room.
Okay, last time she was in the room, I asked something about being happily married, and Chris was like, hey, I'm so happily married. My wife is right there, so happy.
Yeah.
So yeah, Chris is always saying, hey, raising his hand. So we have diamonds here. And it's actually a really interesting story. Does anyone know the story of how the diamond became the sign of love and all that stuff? No? Okay.
De Beers.
Well, yeah. What's
Tell
the
us,
Beers?
Katie.
Oh, thank you. Did you have a question?
No, I know.
Oh, good, good. So then you can add. So you can blame for all of you either men that had to buy the diamond ring and you were pissed about it, or for all you women that are like, why do I have a diamond ring? Blame it on this guy. His name's Cecil Rhodes. And basically, a long time ago, down when everyone's trying to colonize, to get over to the spice area, they had to stop in South Africa and then swoop around. People stopped in South Africa, and then all of a sudden they realized there were diamonds down there, and they went crazy. And there's a whole bunch of story behind that, but people were getting all of these diamonds because this is great. And this guy went down and essentially got a monopoly over it, and he could because it was down in South Africa. He bought up all the mines. By the time he died, De Beers had 90% of the world's diamonds in their vault, and they locked it. And they're like, oh, good. There's tons of diamonds out there. The thing about it, though, is what he did, it's not rare at all. There's so many other types of diamonds. Like there's one called a tanzanite. Most people don't know about it. It's extremely rare. Nobody wants it. But we've outlined it, like, already. But what they ended up doing is they manipulated the crowd. They took all of them, they locked them away, made it rare. We're like, oh, there's not that many of them. We're only going to release this many. That means there's not that much. And then they came over to the United States, where the market and the marketing team was relatively cheesy and easy. And they said, this is the rock of love. This, if you love her, you give this to her. And we bought it. We absolutely bought it. What he did is it's very big on behavioral economics in that he made it a rare commodity. Even if you're lying, like you can do similar to with, back to the date concept. Similar with this, you have this idea that all those kind of games that everyone likes to play and they're really poorly played now, they're rooted in this concept. If you're like, oh, I called you, I'm not going to call you for a couple days, you're making yourself a rare commodity. So that all of a sudden, back to hijacking the subjective experience, they go, oh, I wonder, oh, I can't talk to you. I wanted this, but I can't get it because not everybody has it. I really want it now. So that suddenly, hence the reason you see on those shows, they're like, we only have 5 left. We only have 25 left. They count down because they're making it a diminishing commodity. So you suddenly feel, oh my gosh, I need this. So that's what happened with diamonds. It was just delightful. Everyone bought it. Everyone's like, oh great, everyone has to have diamonds. Unfortunately, all of a sudden the diamond industry started going down. So then De Beers brought in a diamond is forever. So not only, which is now what they do all the time, and they just went the extra step. They said it's rare, it's love, and you're telling her it's forever. All in one rock. Isn't that amazing? So it's actually, like I said, it's actually quite hilarious because there's, I actually have friends, both male and female, which is not all of it. And even if they're not the biggest fan of diamonds, for some reason they feel weird not having a diamond as their wedding ring. It's like it's a judgment. For some people were like, forget it, give me a topaz. Like, I'm on it. But it's odd because it's been ingrained for so long as a social norm of that is the sign of love. It is forever. At one point they even started calling it, since it's a really hard rock, they started calling it resilient to time. It is timeless because it is resilient. I mean, it's really weird because essentially they didn't come over and go, yeah, we found this rock, it's clear, nothing special there. It's shiny, it's kind of hard, and buy it. They didn't do that. They stole subjective experience, they manipulated the situation, and have continued to do that. And there's entire industries based on this. You have the Tiffany diamond. It is the sign of love, which is ridiculous. But then it also, which is great, now that we all know this, and we also have, pessimism, we also have parodies out there, like, if we said you would chop off your arm if you really loved her, you'd probably be stupid enough to do that. De Beers, it's just a rope. We found several of these. I like them a lot. You also have 50 years from now, she's not going to lovingly recall the time you gave her a salad spinner. A diamond is forever. These get better. Hey, what do you think? What do you know? She thinks you're funny again. Diamonds are forever. And then we have another one. No tech support required. Diamonds are forever. And this one, my personal favorites. Because you felt a 60-second blowjob was worth $50 a second. A diamond is forever. And it gets to the main concept, which is, fuck off, just give me diamonds. So that's pretty much what we have here. I mean, it's hilarious because you even have women that will, I mean, and sometimes men, that feel the same way. It's just, I want diamonds. My friend is getting ready to get married. I'm not terribly jazzed about that. But it was really funny. I let her try some of my rings on and be like, what do you like? She just wants it to be big and shiny. It needs to be a diamond, and it needs to be expensive. Fuck the love part of it. It needs to be expensive. So it's really interesting how far this has gone. And she's like a scientist and a researcher, and she understands all of these concepts, and she still can't see past it. So
That's because other people can't see past it.
it's just, yes, it's because other people can't see past it. It's really very interesting because it has been so well ingrained as that sign. If you love me, you'll give me a huge rock. So this is an example. The reason I bring this up is this is an amazing example of manipulation on a worldwide level. One person took behavioral economic concept of rareness and changed the opinion, the industry, made zillionaires out of all these people forever because they manipulated a group of people effectively. That's what, I mean, the marketing for this, amazing. Because it lasted forever. I mean, you have all these Geico commercials where you had a gecko and you had a caveman. They can't keep those forever. The diamond industry, De Beers gets to keep that logo forever because it is so good at what it does. I mean, it's truly, I mean, I find it absolutely amazing because think about what other industries have been able to do that, to change a behavior of an entire nation in one fell swoop for many lifetimes. It's absolutely ridiculous to think about. So it's a great thing of manipulation for fun or profit. What's my time? I know that I'm suddenly going to get like 10 minutes and then I'm going to have to like Speedy Gonzales through this. Do we know?
It's 11:18. You got plenty of time.
Great.
30 minutes.
30 minutes. Okay. So the next thing, let's just say that, okay, we've scared the shit out of somebody to give us a date. We bought them diamonds to tell them we love them. And now we are going to have animals, kids, which could be very similar. And now we need to know, how do we need to train anyone in anything? Because this is important. This gets at the core of behavior analysis from like a human perspective or just from an animal perspective. There's two basic things that you need to know for training anyone: punishment and reward. These two things are extremely simple. So, sorry, just so for clarification, this would be the punishment. This would be the reward. Just so you know. This is one of the commonly unknown things anywhere I go. And that somebody will be talking and they'll be like, oh, well, somebody made a loud noise when I did something wrong. That was positive reinforcement. Like, nope, that was not. Absolutely not. There's two things to consider here. You have punishment and reinforcement. And this is the main thing. Punishment, you want to get rid of the behavior. You want it to go away. Don't reinforce somebody if you want it to go away. I mean, it makes sense. If I want you to take out the trash, which I feel I've asked Chris this before, and he says, I do that all the time for my wife. I love her so much. Because Chris is a good guy.
I'm pwned.
You don't
I said I'm pwned.
He's pwned. Anyway, so if you wanted somebody to take out the trash, you want to increase behavior. You're not going to punish them every time they do it, because that's going to make them stop. So punishment is all about taking away behavior. Reinforcement is all about bringing in behavior. When somebody does something you like, you give them something, whether it's social reinforcement, whatever it might be. Good job. That's that kind of thing. Then you have the positive and you have the negative side. The positive being you're adding something. Makes sense? You can have positive punishment. You're adding an aversive thing to take away behavior. So if you made a really loud noise because you want somebody to stop doing something, you are adding a punishment. It's positive punishment. So how do you use this to train anyone in anything? So, I mean, everyone knows how to train them. Does anyone have dogs? Yeah, I don't have kids. I hate them. So we have to talk about dogs. I'm sorry. I mean, kids are cute for everyone else, and that's completely fine. But I get on planes with them, and bastards. There's one little. I'm sorry. I'm going to digress a little since I have 30 minutes. I sat in a plane, and it was a long plane ride. And this stupid little kid behind me. I'm sure none of your kids are like this. Started kicking my seat, and I was like, okay, I can handle this for like 30 seconds. Really kicking my seat, and I turn around. I kind of give the parent like, hey, your little offspring is kicking my seat. And they're like, oh. So of course they do like a pat the head kind of thing, like, oh, my child, you know, kids do things. I'm like, no. Sit back around. The kid continues to kick my seat. I turn and look at the parent again one more time. Kid does it again, and by this time I'm pissed because I've now spilled something on myself, almost on my laptop, in which case that child would have gone out the window. And I turn around and go, you don't want to kick my seat anymore. He's like, why? He's like, because the pilot will throw you off the plane. And the kid stopped. I know it was really mean, but I was really tired. But he stopped. The worst part about it, and I feel bad for this part, the parent did not do anything. They didn't go, hey, lady, that's mean. She was just like, It's like, I just threatened your child. You should not be a parent. So on that note, though, kids are cute, but we're going to talk about dogs. So, because I have an amazing one. So to train animals, my boyfriend decided he wanted to give the dog a leash, or not a leash, a collar that had a beer opener on it. I think he was wanting to call it the beer buddy, and I was like, whoa there, brah. Let's back out of the frat house just a little bit. But I was like, okay, well, so what if he has it on there? He's like, he's got to bring it to you. So we discussed the logistics of how to do this. So in case you're curious, this is dangerous, but in case you're curious, what you have to do is you have to implement punishment and reinforcement across a period of time. One of the things, first thing you do, we put a towel on the handle to where the dog gets something rather than just chowing. My Great Dane Golden Retriever would just start eating the handle. So, okay, here's the towel. Now you know. Good job. And if the towel's on there, that means you can get into the fridge. So you put a towel on there. Of course this is going to happen. And you start rewarding the dog, giving them treats, whatever it is that they want. You start rewarding the dog for touching and pulling open the fridge, right? Well, great, good job, you're doing this. This is exciting. And then you start fading that out to where they're in the fridge, but they need reinforcement for something. Then you start labeling something in there. Usually I just put like a toy in there, like a very distinctive red toy that he likes a lot. He got the toy, he opens the fridge, gets the toy out of it. Good job, you have reinforcement. Great, go. We keep going with this. Now we put the red around the beer, which is really easy, I guess if you do red label or something. And then now you start rewarding the dog for bringing it to you. So you have the activity. And the reason that this gets a little dangerous is, well, now your dog has ultimate access to the buffet known as your fridge. So that's not very good because they're suddenly going to realize, holy crap, this is where they keep the meat. I mean that. And it's reinforcing in itself. So before that reinforcement comes to play, you have to start punishing them for touching anything that's not red or whatever you've trained. So suddenly we now have the dog go into the fridge if you just take the towel off when you leave. And they know they'll get punished for anything that's not red. So make sure your beers are red, put a koozie on or whatever you want, and ta-da, your dog can now fetch you a beer. You can do the same thing with your child, but I feel like once communication is established, you can probably just do it that way. But yeah, so to train anyone on anything, this is another way of manipulation. It's kind of interesting because punishment and reinforcement can be subtle, it can be enormous. It can be big, grand gestures of large things, or it can be as simple as social reinforcement. A lot of what we do, and a lot of what happens, like training, a big thing with cults, the big success behind a cult is that you isolate and everyone around you is on the same thing, and conformity is your reinforcer. Everybody believes the same thing. If you ever go, I don't know how I feel about that, you're going to get kicked out of your conformist group, your group. They're going to shun you, and that's punishment. That's why nobody rebels. And if they do, you have shows like the Amish group, or whatever those Amish shows are on TV, where the Amish kids left. Oh my gracious. Anyway, so this is always fun here. Sorry guys. It keeps going away. So, how to train anyone in anything. So that's fun. Well, now we have our kids, we have all this stuff. Well, now we want to live, we've scared the crap out of our wife, husband, partner, whatever it is. We are training animals and kids, and now we want to live a long and healthy life. And one day we look at ourselves and realize that we look like this but want to look like that. And we think it's that, but it's really this. We are large, we are smoking or doing some other funky habit, and now it's time, we've implemented all these like manipulations upon everyone else, now we have to manipulate ourselves. Which always happens, and that's fine. And this happens. So how do these things come about? There's a lot of people that are completely comfortable with how they are, and that's totally fine. But then you have people that suddenly wake up one day, and this could actually be the partner, and go, oh my gosh, you're different than you used to be. Why is it suddenly that way? And of course now you have like the do my jeans make me look fat? No, your ass makes you look fat, and it's a problem. So why does this happen? Well, for the top one, it's usually desensitization. What you have here is if you see the person every day and they're slowly changing to something different, it could be something amazing and you suddenly realize, oh, this is great. I need to have a glimmer of hope in here. I feel bad. I feel very down with marriage right now. So you have desensitization. You don't have enough of a change. It's called the just noticeable difference, and I'm sure most of you know what it is, to where you can't, just small changes throughout, you're not going to notice them necessarily. It has to be a certain magnitude. So when somebody, it's not like somebody walks in the next morning, holy crap, I gained 50 pounds. Yes, you would notice that. It's slowly over time. And usually what ends up happening, that's desensitization. Usually what ends up happening is there's a comparison that comes about. If it's yourself, you usually end up standing next to somebody that you know what you looked like before. You see a picture and go, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Or it could be that somebody else does the same thing and it comes to your attention and all of a sudden you realize, holy crap. Most people don't necessarily look at themselves. If clothes just kept fitting the same way, most people would have a very hard, and you live in a bubble, most people have a very hard time realizing how they look. If it was any different, if they were smaller, if they were bigger, whatever it is. Because they have no way of seeing it. So the way you battle this, it's not, this has really got to be for yourself unless you really don't like your relationship, is that you make, that's where you have all these kind of like biohackers, but people that really measure everything they do. You've got weight, you've got all this stuff. It's an attempt to see this change and watch it to where you know, you have visual indicators, you have all these metrics, you have all these graphs, to see, holy crap, a month ago, I weighed 10 pounds less. And I also started running. This is interesting. Now I know. It's an attempt to gain control of this desensitization to where you don't become desensitized and go to this point of no control. So that's one of the things you can do. I have another friend, I don't suggest this habit, but she does it anyway. She takes a picture of herself every week in the same outfit so that she knows what she looks like. I think it was kind of like a egomaniac thing at first, but then she was able to see like when things changed, so now she's like obsessed with it. But still, like I said, don't suggest it. But that's her attempt to get over desensitization. What about things, and I want to go back a second. What about things like social smoking? How many of you guys are a social smoker? Okay, how many of you actually think social smoking is bullshit? Okay, some of you. Okay, regardless, it's not actually bullshit. Social smoking is an interesting phenomenon in pairing. It's an effective pairing technique. Because I've had friends that in behavior analysis, they're like, this is ridiculous, you're a smoker, you smoke. You're like, no, I don't smoke, I don't personally smoke. But the other argument is, no, I don't ever have a need to smoke unless I'm doing X. Most people, it's like go to a bar, or you're around a certain group of friends that smoke. For a lot of people, I had a really good friend of mine, he smoked at work, because that was how he was able to get a break. Which means that when that was no longer like, you could just take a break, he had still paired that. And that's what this concept of social smoking is that you don't actually have this generalized idea, this generalized pairing of smoking. It's that you or someone else has effectively paired that activity with that environment. And this can happen with anything. This can be with eating, this can be with smoking, exercising. Some people exercise around other people better. It's a lack of generalization. And generalization is when you effectively train someone and it goes across all aspects of their life. Essentially, you like that to do with the users. You don't want users to just sit in their office and do everything you tell them to. Then you want them to go home and apply it as well, usually, so that you don't have to deal with their shit when they're at home. This is the same thing. You want to generalize all this stuff. Social smoking is one of those things that it's not that way. They've effectively isolated it to here. I'm in a bar. I want a cigarette. When I leave the bar, I don't want a cigarette because I want to do this. This is one of those things. It's one of those ways to create habits and superstitions and stuff like that. It's how you effectively pair stuff. Actually, back onto marriage, one of my old professors, who's now divorced, used to describe his wife as effective pairing of a euphoric stimulation of cigarettes. That was their marriage. The reason that they got together, and he says, and she just loved it, was that they would go on smoke breaks together. So he effectively paired, back to like scaring the shit out of your date, he had effectively gotten himself paired with the euphoric experience of cigarette smoke, and she attributed it to him. So they got married, had 2 kids, got divorced, and he's now with some French girl. So, anyway, there you go. More manipulation. Now you know. Give me a second. I'm going to speed through this for a moment. So we got desensitization, effective pairing, and delay of consequences. As far as the living a long and healthy lifestyle and how to really bring it in for yourself and manipulate yourself, one of the biggest problems with any sort of health-related thing is me eating a Twinkie today does not translate to what it's going to do to me later. It's so far removed. It's essentially like back to the punishment and consequences. If you wanted to train your dog to open the door, he opens the door, and in 2 days you reward him. He has no damn clue what that's to. He hasn't effectively paired it. It doesn't work. That's the same problem when it comes to any health-related thing. It's not an immediate reaction. You have nothing to show the immediate consequences. So a lot of people try to hack this as well, which is where that measurement comes in. You're like, hey, I ate this. I know what this does. Look at my predictive measurement, kind of thing. And the other thing that you have is they'll start associating other things. That's where you have other people that are like, oh, when I don't go to the gym, I don't get, I don't know, to play video games. I have no idea. My friend uses other food. It's weird. If she doesn't go to the gym, she doesn't get certain food, but I feel like it's the wrong pairing. So anyway, but this is where you see a lot of those weight loss programs and all this good stuff, things like The Biggest Loser. It's all about effectively pairing right there, but the problem with The Biggest Loser is it doesn't generalize. The minute they leave, we're all back to our same habits, whatever. So delay of consequences. This is another way to really create a habit and hack that whole thing. So that's fun. So we've living a long and healthy life. We have our partner, we have our dog, we have our kids, we have all this stuff. Now we have to deal with our in-laws, which if any of you love your in-laws, then just ignore me. They're just stubborn habits and superstitions. That's all they are right now. That's all they are to me. In-laws suck. So anyway, what you have here is essentially you have a older group of people, and they definitely have stubborn habits, just like we all have stubborn habits. But they've been doing it for a long time, and they've also been doing it with these offspring. They established these habits within there, unknowingly sometimes, and it kind of sucks sometimes to deal with. It's also kind of interesting to see the pairing, like you see, oh, this happens to my partner, and there it is, and their parents. There you are. So as an example, my partner's mother-in-law or mother came to visit us the other week, and she's in a habit of not trying food that is outside of her wheelhouse, which is everything that is not McDonald's, pretty much. So when you look at her and say, hey, would you like some fish? And she's like, yeah, well, I only like one type of fish. What type of fish is that? I have no idea what it was, but it was only indigenous to Australia. She's never been there. Don't know why she likes this fish. I don't like fishy fish. Oh, but I do like, not trout. What is the fishiest fish you can think of?
Mackerel.
Mackerel? I feel like she liked that one. Wasn't halibut? What? Wasn't halibut? Yeah, it was, one of them was mackerel. She basically, the only fish she liked were the ones that went into fish and chips. And I don't like fishy fish. Every fish she named to me was the fishiest fish I've ever eaten. So I was like, I'm not eating that. So all of a sudden, we have a habit, we have a problem here because she's also going to complain. She acts like she's 5. She's also going to complain. We have a habit. I don't eat anything outside of my, I don't know what that is. I'm not eating that. How do you break this? Well, for me, I just said, well, this is what we're cooking. We're making carne asada. What's that? It's meat. Eat it. But this is another one of those things. It's realizing habits that occur. And a lot of people, if you have a habit, again, with dealing with in-laws, or even with kids, you like to just kind of feed it. Well, this is what they always do. You're rewarding a stubborn habit. And that's a bummer. So with habits, one of the things, because my partner he had a very similar stubbornness when it came to eating food as well. So what we would do is anytime I would make something and he'd go, I don't want that. I was like, have you ever tried it? No. So I would reward him for trying it. He always liked it. But I would reward him for trying it. So suddenly, I have broken him out of his habit. As a matter of fact, I've rewarded him and given him a habit of actually going outside of his wheelhouse, where so much so that I think we had octopus one time and he'd never had it before. And he's like, I had octopus, and he looked at me like a dog waiting for a treat. He's like, I had octopus. And I was like, good job, we're in public, I can't reward you. It's really interesting. So now we've created a new habit. You address the habit and you deal with it accordingly. If I were to just be, if he was like, I don't like this, I'd be like, fine, I'll make you something else, or even worse, which is my actual like gut reaction. I don't like this. Fucking eat it anyways. It's not gonna work, because that means we're gonna have a problem. So this is a stubborn habit. I know I have another story. The other thing that we have is habits is usually with ways of life. Setting things up. How many of you have had a little bit of friction in moving in with somebody? It could be a partner, it could be a roommate, whatever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a little bit of friction. There's a lot of people that have issues with roommates because when you get together in one space, you love the way your space is set up. These are where the dishes go, and this is where this goes, and I don't like doing this, and the toothpaste is this way. And it's essentially one of the biggest parts of moving in with anybody, is establishing the habits and figuring out, one, nobody's gonna sync completely. So you either do the completely weird OCD thing that my two roommate friends did, and they essentially like had two parts of the kitchen. There was two parts of the fridge. Like they just were like, no, I'm not compromising at all. I'm setting up the way I want to, which was really interesting. Or you have your partner where you have to figure out a way to coexist. And then of course when your in-laws come into play and they are like, no, this is where the spices go. And you come home and you go, what the hell did you do to my house? Which has happened before I came home and all my dishes were in different spots because this is where they go. I was like, one, I can't reach that because I'm a little short and their entire family is tall. And I'm like, and now I can't find anything. So I essentially walked out. I looked at Greg. I walked out. I said, I need all that to be fixed when I get back. Okay? Yes. I left. But this is what these habits are. Manipulating the situation is realizing what's going on. And again, this gets back to you have to manipulate yourself as well. You have to figure out what is a do or die thing for me. And pick those things. Let's say it happens to be that the spices are on the counter for some reason. And then figuring out how to get them to change. Rewarding them for it, punishing them for not doing it that way. Who knows? Depends on what's most effective. But that's that idea of co-creating habits. Because if you actually don't manipulate the situation, whether you or them, what you end up having is 20 years later, this thing did you say you were pooned?
Yeah.
Yeah, but not for Chris. But you have people that you essentially all of a sudden look at your life and you realize, I still have these habits and it annoys the shit out of me that we're not doing it. Okay? So this is essentially what happens. So you have these habits. It's way fun. Do we know what time it is now?
10 minutes.
10 minutes. He's just about to put my whole side up. Well, then the other thing we have here is superstitions. I always like to talk about superstitions when you come to habits, because superstitions are essentially a slightly neurotic habit. Okay? What are some, does anyone have a superstition here at all? Nobody? What kind of superstitions do you have? What do you have?
Probably my biggest superstition is like no matter what, like even if I'm on the small blind, I will never play the hand 7-10 in poker. Never.
Okay. Why is that?
Because it reminds me of 7-10 splits in bowling, and 7-10 splits suck.
Okay. So no 7-10s in poker. What was yours?
Just about how things have to be cleaned or set up. That if like I have certain knickknacks, and if they're not where they are when I leave, then I'll have bad luck the whole day. So I have to like set them up, and it has to be good tomorrow.
Has to be that way. Any other ones? Yes?
My mom taught me you never throw away keys because you're throwing away your security. So I have a key ring.
Holy crap, your mom's a genius.
I have a key ring at home that's about this big, that's filled with every key that I've
Ever
for
heard.
every apartment, every place I've ever lived.
Wow. Anyone else? Or superstitions you know? Go ahead.
Don't ever say 7 at a craps table.
Okay. Have you ever? Yeah. No. I mean, it's all different. I mean, and then of course you have the knock on wood thing. You have to knock on wood or something that's around you. If you say something, throwing salt over your shoulder. You have baseball. I love baseball. I was going to tell you guys about the superstition of. Do you know? Does any raise your hand if you know that baseball players don't step on the foul line? I'm sorry. Somebody told me that nobody would understand. Anyway, baseball players don't step on a foul line because they think it's bad luck. But baseball players are some of the most superstitious athletes in the world. Yes, some of them are really gross. his Giants, the beard, but he's a pitcher. And there's a lot of guys that do the same thing. They have the playoff beard. They do not cut their beard during the playoffs because they're scared of bad luck. You have things with socks. You have boxers that won't have sex before a fight. There's a whole bunch of superstitions, and some of them are personal to where we've learned them through life, and some of them are things that have been passed on. And the difference, it's essentially a habit, because like you described the knick-knack, it's a habit, but it's associated with an outcome. It's associated with a performance, and that's exactly where they stem from. Usually, baseball superstitions and other athletic-based superstitions were based in an extreme performance. You did something really good, and you're not going to attribute it to yourself because that's hard to control. You're just like, oh, well then if I messed up, it's me. You start finding something else. You're like, oh, I have a longer beard. I've been doing this. I need to keep doing this. I need to not change anything. Oh my gosh. And that's what this is associated with, is an extreme performance that you externalize. In which case, it's extremely easy to make a superstition because all you have to do is find like a TV scrambler or anything that messes with things like artificially, and you get your friend, person, dog, cat, whatever, to suddenly associate their performance with doing some crazy thing you've asked them to do. And I've seen this done. I used to teach undergrads, in which case I'd bring somebody in, and beforehand I would have the class, 300 people, decide on a behavior they wanted them to do. Sometimes it was crazy, like take off the tie. And sometimes it was like get on the desk for some reason. And the person didn't know what was going on, but they would start rewarding them the closer they got to this behavior. And one person it really backfired on because it was really, really effective and they had no idea what was going on. I didn't tell them because it was funny and they were my friend. But it was the take off the tie thing. And from this day, he always takes off his tie because he thought it was an amazing class. He had such a great class. Well, of course, 300 people are clapping at you. So you're like, oh, this is great, they just love me. He takes off his tie before every lesson. Even after I told him, hey dude, no, I kind of planned that. He doesn't care.
So how do you break people from these superstitions?
It's a very good question, and it's very hard to do. Because you essentially have to put them in a situation where they performed, and they didn't have it anymore. Like, okay, we cut off the beard for some reason, but the problem with it though is superstitions are just like habits. You can explain them away so easily. You externalize it to something else. Oh, well, you didn't have your playoff beard, but it was the best pitch of the season for you. Yeah, well, I didn't change my socks. They find something else to externalize. Yeah, they'll find something else to replace it. That's why, I'll even admit to it. There's times where I'll say something that I really don't want to happen, and even though I don't believe in it, I don't even be would, but I'll knock on something. It's ridiculous, but it's also it's almost like a just in case. It's not a lot of effort, and you just don't want to go through it. So yeah, it's very, very difficult to break superstitions because it can always be externalized, and that's why somebody that their life is bored with superstitions. It's really, you can't really break it from them. They go through therapy for a very long time, and it just does not work. So more manipulations of superstition. So all in all, what we have here today, we're gonna wait for it to do its thing. I had diamonds, fitness, and cults, manipulation for fun and profit, and eventually just turned into diamonds, fitness, and in-laws, manipulation for life, love, and a wicked six-pack. Thanks. I think I have 5 minutes. Do you guys have any questions?
It's kind of not related. What is the theory on this hypnosis? How come some people
Hypnosis?
Yeah, some people are. I went to the show. I wasn't hypnotized.
Yeah, did you believe it would work?
I was just kind of like, hey, give it a try, but I wasn't. Everyone else seemed to be.
Everyone else seemed to be into it. Hypnosis is it's a great manipulation technique, but it only works on people who believe. It's like kind of like seeing ghosts. If you don't believe in ghosts, an actual like ghostly figure could go in front of you, and it's very similar to the superstition. You explain it away to something else. But if you believe in stuff like that, if you believe in hypnosis, if you believe in ghosts, you can create anything. So yeah, hypnosis is all about the ability to influence you. So yeah, I can't get hypnotized because I don't.
Yeah, but seems to me like statistically though, it seems a lot of people were able to be hypnotized.
Yeah, because a lot of people are able to be influenced. Yeah. Yeah.
I actually had a couple of questions.
Okay, I'm just over here.
Yep. Desensitization, how is that different from intentional change blindness in the current environment? Is there a different neurological basis for one versus the other?
That's a good question. So the attentional blindness and anything like you have something in your glasses and it goes away, that is like basic neural level, whereas desensitization is, it's not you're not noticing the change because you're not getting enough change. That is a matter of, like, for example, in the glasses and attentional blindness, it's this idea that something's staying there and your neurons are extremely effective, so it basically goes, okay, I don't need to pay attention to it anymore. It literally is leaving it alone. It's ignoring it. Whereas desensitization is, it's kind of like the volume knob. It's exactly the volume knob. The just noticeable difference is that it doesn't actually go up the same degree every number. It has to increase by a certain percentage. Otherwise, you won't notice the change. So, like, say from 1 to 2 was actually 1 to 2. 9 to 10, you're not going to notice it. It actually has to increase by a certain percentage, which is usually about 10%. So that's the difference. It's a very good question, but that's the difference. Is one is actually a neural level, somewhere neural level, I'm ignoring it. And the other one is just that I haven't given you enough information to even notice that it's different. You said you had another question?
Yeah, I did. So when you mentioned smoking,
Yeah.
what about other behaviors and if the environment has changed? So a big, like not allowed to drink in a certain area or not allowed to congregate because somebody's moved a table from a location. Can that be enough to break those behaviors, or does it require even more dislocation?
It really, that again, it depends on when you're training up these behaviors, it really depends on how well you have generalized or specified. Sometimes you want it to be this table, in which case moving the table, taking the table away, changing the tablecloth color could be enough to be like, oh, I don't really want to do that anymore. But for some people, even though it's at the table, they might actually consider it the room. Or they might have generalized it in general. You have the people with you, and they've generalized it all around.
Is there a way to figure how people respond to those things? Is there a way that they respond to an environment differently that you might be able to draw away so you could say that that's been affected?
Oh, yeah. There's entire behavior analysis model plans, essentially, that are all about that. You do something called a functional analysis, and then you do an analysis of its generalization, and then you start doing a whole bunch of things, and you figure out, okay, how far have they, I've trained up the behavior, how far has it gone? And once you figure that out, then you start expanding it out or narrowing it in through punishment and reinforcement. So yeah, there's an entire area of people,
So
which
it's
yeah.
pretty sophisticated.
It's pretty extensive. There's people that their entire job is to just do a functional analysis.
I had one more, if
Okay.
no one else.
Do you have any questions? He has one more. Okay.
Super systems versus other belief systems, either like
You're saying like religious belief systems?
religious or I don't know,
Political?
multi-level marketing.
Yeah.
Are they the same psychology pretty much, or is there a contrast between simple superstition and a greater belief system?
The greater belief system, anyone that's massively religious, don't like hurt me later. They are bore on a lot of superstition, but it's not just superstition. Especially the original form of Christianity, that was a lifestyle. In which case, there was superstition behind it to kind of get things going and to be like, why is this? Well, because this happens. But a big part of it was the fact that it wasn't just Sunday. Your entire life was dictated by this belief system. So that's why it was so closely ingrained. And getting to a political, it's very similar as well, is that it's so ingrained in there as a lifestyle. So it's hard to separate it out. Okay, well, it looks like we're done. So if you guys have any other questions, let me know.
Thank you all. Up next in this room is vulnerability and exploit trends. I have Shui for the folks that I couldn't.